Hello, beloveds, and welcome to the Black Mirror Oracle. Earlier today, as I was scrying in the Black Mirror, I saw a barren battleground. There were, broken weapons, and there were swords and all that. I didn't see any bodies or any person, just a woman in the center in a black robe screaming in emotional agony. And of course, the first thing I thought of was the Morrígan, the goddess of the battle and death from Celtic lore. They say you can hear her screaming. So then I saw a shield of silver, but it was round and it started turning, reminding me of the Wheel of Fortune. And then I saw this same woman, but instead of looking old and in a robe, one who's on the battlefield, she stands up and she's dipped her finger in blood and is smearing it under her eyes like a warrior. So I'm getting the feeling of overcoming obstacles through protecting yourself properly, not protecting yourself out of fear or danger, but out of autonomy, sovereignty, and safety. And in that way, you can rise from being the one who's only stuck in mourning and rise into the one who's ready to do battle with life itself if needed. And this card was in reverse, so I'll keep it. Oh, and this one's jumping, so we'll pull it. Okay. Guess this one too. Okay. On days that the cards are jumping, I just go with it. We will do a channeled tarot reading at the end. Okay. The courage of your love. Sometimes the courage of our love has to do with making choices that don't intuitively seem loving, right? Sometimes we have to make choices like that woman on the battlefield. She chose to stand up and love herself and fight back when it looked like all hope was lost. Sometimes this bravery looks like creating a shield around you to protect yourself. And I think it's significant that it was a silver shield because that's like a mirror, right? Reflecting back. Like, so what has hurt you? Reflecting it back. That's how you keep your inner sovereignty, right? So for your shadow cards, this was the one that was in reverse for some reason, like in the deck. This one, I get the idea that this woman is in control of herself and her life and her surroundings. And the only way to gain that is to gain autonomy over yourself and not let other people control you. And one of the only ways to do that is to do your shadow work, to do your inner healing. Because as Jung says, if you haven't made the unconscious conscious, basically life is going to throw you around and you're going to think it's fate. It's going to feel like it's coming externally, when really it was in your head the whole time. There are external things that happen, but the thing is that one of the biggest wars waged against the individual is the war to control your subconscious mind. Because they know out there, 95% of everything you think, do, say, comes from your subconscious mind. So if they can hijack that, if anyone else can hijack that, whether that be a partner or society, so that you'll buy more stuff, they're going to do it. So you need to take responsibility for that and try to do your own condition yourself the way that you want. And doesn't that go along with this? It looks like it's the sky, but if you look underneath, you can tell it's just a facade. That's not really the sky. That's an illusion. And you're holding your light up, but underneath there's so much going on. So you feel like you're drowning. And this also has a feeling of like masking yourself energy. You are sovereign. The world kind of wants to convince you that you're not. Turn your back. It's really painful to go through these processes because it feels like you're turning your back on everything you ever learned. Can be a feeling of being ripped apart inside because you feel like you're betraying everything, but it's conditioning. When you start reversing that conditioning and saying, I love myself, it's the biggest act of revolution to love yourself. Yeah. You need to take your power back. And people will try to tell you, oh, you have to be so humble. Sure, in the right situation, but humility has also been used as a tool in order to keep people in line and in control, because a person who feels guilty if they're not humble, or if the idea of humility is twisted. The idea of humility is twisted into self-sacrifice. In fact, I recently did a Black Mirror Oracle about the wounded healer. That might resonate with you if you want to look back and find that. But so it's going to feel like a revolutionary act to just say, oh, I am the master of my fate. I am in charge of my destiny. There are external things that happen, but the only thing you really have control over is your internal. And here we have a beautiful picture, almost like divine light or the sweetness of honey drifting on this meditator from what looks like a Buddhist-looking image. And here we have a bunch of mushrooms. So this is actually interesting because fungi, a woman dancing under the fungi. Fungi are so fascinating because the mycelial networks, like the networks that connect the mushrooms, they can spread for miles. And there's been some studies about how trees communicate using the mycelial network. And so in this context of sovereignty, it's to understand that by being sovereign, you are still in communication. It doesn't mean separating yourself from everyone. It means the discernment of knowing who to expose yourself to, what situations to expose yourself to. And we have rebirth and renewal and necromancy calls. Ooh. It's really interesting these two came up together because this is death and rebirth. This is dancing with your demons. Are you ready to dance with your demons in order to be able to step in and keep your sovereignty, the courage of your love, and have true mastery over yourself? Not because you want to control others or because you have a compulsion to be controlling, but so that you can be the master of yourself and not outsource that to someone else accidentally. A lot of people do it on purpose. Most people do it accidentally. But then they might be exposed to something like this that tries to wake them up. And then they might say, no, I'm still not going to do it. But we all rise to the level of our own wounds. We all rise to the level of what we can handle. So be gentle on yourself. Someday when stuff like this clicks, you'll be like, oh, I got the signs sooner. Why didn't I listen? You weren't ready. It's okay. Just be gentle with yourself. All right, beloved, let's see what your channeled message is today. Definitely look at the last few if this is resonating, because we're getting a lot of similar energy here with the Star, Strength, and Five of Pentacles, as well as Nine of Wands showed up. There's a lot of tens here, so concluding a cycle that's been very painful. All right, with Major Arcana here, we have the Star and Strength. So let's get started with our channel reading. Beloved, you've had to be so strong in the past. A lot of times you felt very confused because what you've been being told and what your mind is telling you didn't seem to align with reality. And you were thinking, why isn't this the same? Why is it that this seems so clear and yet everyone or everything else is telling me something different? This pulled you into the nightmarish task of picking apart the very thoughts that set the foundation of your life. And this is destructive, but you've known in your soul that you want this autonomy, that you want this sovereignty. Whether you've been able to name it or not, you know that abundance is in you. And instead of letting yourself be picked apart anymore, you've decided that you are going to overflow with abundance and step into this sovereign energy. No matter how hard it takes, if you have to dance with your demons, if you have to do your shadow work, you are the star. you know that that lightning bolt of clarity that destroys the tower is lifting you up for something better, lifting you up into your true self. You're turning your back on old ideas of what it means to be a successful human being. Because the idea of success in society, success of your family, or even the success that you believe in yourself, you are coming to a point where you're having to question all of that. And it's coming from a place where you don't really have a choice but to question it. These things rise up in us and in our subconscious, and they just get to the point where you can't ignore them anymore, beloved. You're so brave for doing this work and being here. And even if you hear this today and it recedes back into your subconscious, that's okay. It'll come back. These messages, they speak directly to your subconscious. You know, beloved, when I read shadow work books, like by Jung or Robert Bly or anything, I don't have to study them. I just read them, and then I start having crazy dreams, and I start noticing these patterns in my life. Just by being here, you started the work. So, beloved, be gentle on yourself. Be proud of yourself. It's felt like a nightmare for so much, like you have been overtaken, like you've been picked apart. There's so much of this victim energy. And I'm not saying you haven't, but you've probably been victimized externally in one way or another, or exploited in one way or the other. That can mean a lot of different things. But now, when the nightmare is over, how are you going to find the strength to find the autonomy to bring your sovereignty back online? It never left, but other people convince you to give your power away. And it's time for you to take it all back, beloved, because it was always yours and never anyone else's. Your affirmation says, let go of what does not serve me with ease. You know, my favorite rule, if you're confused, let go. Is it a job that confuses you? Is it a person, a relationship that keeps you confused? You go to get clarity and you can't get it. Let it go. Let go of what does not serve you with ease. Beloved, you are a king, a queen, an emperor, an empress. You are going to embody that energy fully. It's already there. You just have to pull it back out again. I'll see you next time, beloved.